Greetings YouTube, Skill Incarnate bringing you all the latest indie gaming goodness. Due to the massive success of my last video covering Project Zomboid tutorials, along with the feedback from several of my viewers, I've returned with a second installment. I've compiled some more tips and tricks that I picked up during my time playing the game, and I hope this advice will assist you in your own survival efforts out there in the wasteland. Today's subject will be a critical one. It's a guide on food, including the different types of food available in the game, the different ways you can obtain food, and a basic guide on the nutrition system. This is a critical aspect to the game, and understanding the way food works along with how to keep yourself fed can mean the difference between life and death. Tip number 1. You are what you eat. Recently, Project Zomboid added an extra layer of depth to the food system. Different food now has different nutritional values. These include carbohydrates, proteins, lipids, and calories. The higher these values, the greater the nutritional value and also the greater amount of weight you will gain when eating it. An important thing to note is that unless you have chosen either the fitness instructor occupation or the nutritionist trait, when creating your character, you will only be able to see the nutritional value for packaged food. Perishable food, including food you farmed or trapped, will not show the nutritional value, so you'll need to keep an eye on your weight. A great tip for managing your weight is to try and keep it between 80 and 85 kilos. Any more than this will cause you to become overweight. This results in a large decrease in stamina, and any less will cause you to become underweight and eventually starve to death. This also results in a very large decrease in strength. Remember to keep a stockpile of food, particularly fattening food like chips and drinks, and eat this whenever your weight begins to drop. Tip number 2. Know the best places to find food. Food can be found in apartments and warehouses, but much like real life, you can find large quantities of food in your local supermarket or food warehouse. One of the few advantages of the apocalypse is that zombies are not going to be headed on a shopping trip. This means that a careful survivor can break into the right building and find enough food to keep them fed for months. If you are going on a shopping trip, make sure to bring some big bags to carry your loot, and always carry a weapon, because these places will always be infested with zombies who are looking for a different kind of meal. If you are going to make multiple trips, try to prioritize gathering the perishable food, as it can be frozen inside a refrigerator. Non-perishable food can be left till later when the power fails. Tip number 3. Farming is essential to long-term survival. No matter how effective your scavenging efforts are, eventually you will run out of food, forcing you to seek alternate ways of keeping yourself fed. When searching houses and shops, make sure to keep an eye out for seeds along with a hand fork or trowel. All you need to do is use your trowel to furrow the ground, plant some seeds, add a little bit of water, and wait for your crop to grow. Remember that food will mature at different speeds, with some crops available in days and others taking weeks to become ready. The crops that you farm have a variety of uses, including being eaten raw, cooked into soups and stews, and being preserved for use later. One of the most useful applications of fresh food is being used for gathering even more food via trapping and fishing. Farming is a very complex subject, and I can't explain everything here. I'll be doing a more detailed coverage of farming in a future video. Tip number 4. It's a trap. If you've been following my tips so far, you should at least have a small farm, giving you a regular source of fruit and vegetables. If you're lucky enough to find a trapping recipe book, you will also get some recipes for animal traps. These include stick traps, box traps or snares. You will also need nails, planks and sometimes twine or wire, depending on the trap you want to build. In order to use a trap, you will need to place it in a wooded area like a forest and at a bait. You will have the best luck when placing these deep in the forest where animals are plentiful. You can use carrots, potatoes and cabbages, all grown on your farm, as a bait to catch rabbits and squirrels in a box trap, and use the worms you will get from tilling the ground or from your composter in a bird trap. The main advantage of trapping is that it provides meat. Meat is currently the highest amount of nutritional food and is the most reliable way to keep your character's weight up. So these are essential in late game. Tip number 5. Teach a man to fish. Trapping is a great way to find meat, which is the best source of food. However, animals will deplete over time, forcing you to wait for your food source to replenish. Another excellent way to locate meat is through fishing, which only requires a river or lake and the appropriate fishing tool. In order to get fishing, you will either need to find a fishing rod or a fish trap in a hardware store. And if you found the correct fishing recipe book, you can make a homemade fishing rod or trap with the right materials. If you only have basic tools, you can make a fishing spear by combining a knife or chipped stone with a tree branch. It's then a simple matter of finding a body of water and selecting the fishing option, or placing a trap to catch some fish. Keep in mind that your chance of successfully catching a fish is dependent both on your fishing skill and the tool you're using. So you'll need to spend a lot of time practicing before you start getting results. You can deplete the available fish in an area, so you will need to wait for fish to return in the same way you will need to wait for animals when trapping. Tip number 6. Forage, forage, forage. The final way to gather food is through foraging, which involves you searching for natural resources provided by the forest. In order to forage, you will need to go to the forest and select the forage option. From the context menu, you can select the type of resource you want, in our case, food. You will then look for resources in the area, which can include food like berries, mushrooms and bugs. With a higher foraging skill, you can even find eggs and even live animals like frogs. If you've read the right recipe book, you can also find medicinal herbs. A critical thing to remember when foraging is that there's a chance that food may be poisonous. A great way to check if a food item is poisonous is to actually eat one, and wait 24 hours to make sure you don't become ill. Berries, for example, are color-coded, so you can quickly separate the poisonous ones from those safe to eat. And that was it for my second tips video for the new build of Project Zomboid. I hope these tips give you some knowledge to help you survive the zombie apocalypse. I'll be exploring some of the subjects we've only touched on in this video, such as farming, foraging and trapping in greater detail in future videos. As always, I'd love to hear your feedback and any questions you might have about this fantastic game. Let me know what you think of the video, and if you have any ideas for future videos or subjects, let me know. Until then, Skill Incarnate out.